Okay, so we're now into heavy debugging of the system. An end-to-end testing of semantic cue animation. So based on whatever I say, there's some semantics governing animation in what I'm saying. And this underlying semantics is what the brain of an animator has in mind and what needs to be reproduced by this artificial intelligence. Now this is extremely complicated, starting with a transcript with not only the extracted text from audio and video, but also at segmentation and chapter level and metadata for each one of these chapters. So these go through all these steps in the end-to-end animation test. It goes through the design gallery service, retrieving candidate cues, and goes through the template and engine generator to decide exactly how to process the underlying data to generate an animation script from a given template, okay? So I've run these end-to-end tests. I've recently just made so that there's detailed logging for everything in here. And I don't really feel like looking at the debug information because I really want to stay at the high-level architectural system. I'm understanding all the stuff. And the AI is telling me, yeah, you got to debug. Nope. I'm going to activate Gemini 2.5 Pro Max. And I'm going to feed it in all the debug information. And either it's been successful in capturing all the relevant information for judging the efficacy of the system currently, in which case I wanted to document exactly the trace of life of data in the system, starting from it in hierarchical analysis JSON to its final instantiation as an animation script. So I wanted to look at all the data inside each one of the files that I've attached in this call and comment on whether or not that data was expected or not. Talk about the worst, the best and worst state of the debug files attached, how they should look at the semantic level when work is good, e.g. the semantic cue is relevant to the transcript, the parameters extracted are correct, the animation makes sense to the human brain. Talk about the life of data in the chapter, the concrete values mentioned, and how the values inside this semantic language instructor config controls this. Document this detailed examination of the life cycle of data in a new dedicated docs/md file. It can just be a little abundantly clear. Let it come up in the name. Touching the functions, mentioning the calls to LLMs, the embedded semantic cues, and the ones that were activated given the exact calls to LLMs. I'll be explicit in the cues. Comment on how comprehensive the delivered debug data was in providing the needed information for assessment and obvious ways to improve the system and noticed errors. After mentioning the exact lifecycle value like chapter introduction that would be displayed. So let's see what it does. It always delivers. It's not going to give me this type of thing for free. It doesn't occur to it that this is highly useful. It thinks that it's my job, or it's just tons of compute. It doesn't want to do it. But if I say that it should do it, this is what's necessary right now. This is what I would do. Trace it. This is what I used to do. But no longer. Now I want you to do it. Okay, here we go. Okay. So this is unimaginably complex. But when this is correct, when we get the semantic cue extraction right, because there is some system that works given some segmentation of the data, and there is some animation that looks awesome, and it's highly flexible. So you can just spit out new configs, and you can get really good designers to tweak them and imagine new scenarios together with AIs. When this gets good, this is completely undeniable as this animation system. So, yeah. Okay. Now, yeah, exactly. I thought there was something off by this. Look. Now it's looking, it has all these expectations for how it should work, but it simply has never bothered looking at the debug files. It's just, it's verifying something else in the test that it does, which makes sense to do in the building of the system, starting by these mock calls and then doing integration and making sure everything in this highly sophisticated system is working. So like, even though my end-to-end tests that I ran with it give total passing, the actual semantic analysis with this deep and powerful artificial intelligence, literally the best coder in the world, now sitting working on this system for me at pennies on the dollar, notices, you're right, the end-to-end test did catch a bug. Current segment info is missing or not detected. The current segment, okay. So it fixed it. Yeah, let's dive into the detailed data lifecycle analysis and create the documentation. On the intended flow, okay, so now it's creating this end-to-end data lifecycle language and structure MD file. Then this is a beautiful piece of documentation that, you know, this is the kind of thing. Imagine you're building a super advanced system that is dependent on having the best coders in the world who let their brains hold things like the data lifecycle of these ultra complex pipelines. And being able to tweak this. This is where we were. Just, I would say we still are there to an extent because these systems haven't fully proliferated through the companies, but they are proliferating now. And these engineers that cost $800,000 a year because their brains are so rare in being able to hold the life cycle of data like this, they can now be replaced by artificial intelligence. So let's see what this file says. Okay, it finished off. This is beautiful. This document traces the life cycle of data through the video animation generation system, specifically for an end-to-end test run using the language instructor video usage, which for the time being is just a metadata layer, which should be clarified. It's just a metadata. It could translate how to use hierarchical analysis, but if you hold hierarchical analysis constant, it should be removed from the system, given how it's built, and we can consider this with the AI. We will analyze the files from the end-to-end test run with this ID. Note on a critical bug, the chapter debug logs.json from this specific test run reflects a state before a crucial bug fix. So I'm tempted to just run it again and ask it to redo this analysis. But we'll leave that aside. This bug caused current segment info. Okay, so there was a bug. Input files and initial state. The end-to-end test is initiated by the script's run end-to-end animation test. With the following inputs: hierarchical analysis file, video usage, design imperative ID. This is such a nice prompt to use. I'm gonna have to add this because then you link all the files of all the debug information and have it output the lifecycle of data. And then it finds new bugs doing this. Okay. Hierarchical analysis JSON. Yeah, this file is copied in here. Structure contains the overall metadata, duration, and a hierarchical levels object. Target chapter. The system processes one chapter at a time. Start, and we're just going to have a quick Swedish lesson here. Yeah, right, look, here's exactly what it is. Perfect. You nailed this. Expectation, this raw data will be transformed by structured content from video usage and then used by the template engine to drive animation generation per segment. Yeah. Configs, design imperative, semantic language and structure, generation type, template, indicating template engine generator will be used. Right, I mean, one thing that has happened in here is that in the first pass of this, it's created the exact abstractions that you want in the system to generalize it, because it's not lazy. It's encoding this as data, the generation type, so we can easily swap out to a different system. Elements type defines a lesson main title text element that sources its content from structured content.title. Crucially, it contains a for each directive. As in-slot template orchestrates segment queue animation. This is where each process segment will be passed. Other arguments pass down configuration paths. Expectation, this DI config is central to orchestrating per segment processing. This is so unbelievably complex, and in my head I'm just thinking, some human needs to understand this, some super talented programmer. So someone has an understanding of the system and how it ought to be tweaked. But it's fine because the AI completely understands, but it's missing the crucial thing of parallel visual, like multimodal computation and holding different state imperatives with a massive context that my brain can do. And so it's just that you need to have me in here to hold this higher level architecture and guidance, basically. But understanding this stuff is so hard for me to do still. What it is that these templates in fact do. Data transformation. The journey of a segment. Yeah, so anyway, this is stuff for me to go into here and really understand.